Morning, Richard.
Morning, fellow Data Dick. You missed it again.
I know, and it's because we keep putting Richard on the screen. I just looked down at the name to double check I am talking to someone called Richard, and then
Maybe we should just call Dick 1 and Dick 2. Then we're going to have arguments over who's Dick 1 and who's Dick 2, though, aren't we?
I'm happy to be Dick too.
Okay.
Just the way life rolls sometimes.
Oh dear.
So,
We're gonna get an E next to it again this week, aren't we?
yeah. So swiftly moving on.
I gather myself. Come on, professional. Right. So I thought today then we should talk about how there's obviously AI is becoming rather a huge topic, and quite rightly. I've been to numerous meetings and seen demonstrations and looked through it, and it's got a lot of good there, lots of power, and I think it's going to be really, really interesting where it goes. However, on the topic of data and how important it is to get data right and make sense of it, as has been proven quite a bit, if you don't have your data foundations correct and you don't have a strong enough data process in place, what you end up with if you start bolting in and slamming in AI here, there, and everywhere will be a load of garbage. So, while you're slurping, I think that's a good topic because I think it might, I've said this all along, and we talk about it. I say it a lot on LinkedIn and things about how you get garbage in, garbage out. If you've got wonky data, you end up with wonky dashboards, which are wonky decisions, blah blah blah, which is all relevant. So but data AI platforms are only going to be ever as good as the data it's fed, which is known
Yeah.
within the AI community, but within organizations, is that acceptance there is the question.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because even at the highest level, kind of AI, I think currently is obviously shining a light on data probably more than anything has done in the previous decade. Even though we've been saying garbage in, garbage out since day zero. Even when you looked at some of the commercial ones like ChatGPT that people were using, the first version of that was the free version, we know was only trained up to a certain time period. So actually, if you're using that to work out what marketing you're going to do or how you're going to use some of the information you've got, the only information ChatGPT could bring back was market information that was a minimum of 2 years old, if not more. So it wasn't looking at what are the actual current trends today and what's moving forward. So I think it's timely to have the chat because it's such a key thing that AI is coming. I was at a conference last week. AI is coming. Literally every company is talking about it. It's not going to stop. But how you use it and where you're going with it and kind of the decisions you're going to make with it, the help effectively that it's going to give you as a business does need to be looked at. And as you say, if you're training large language models or GPTs and things on your own data and your own data's garbage to start with, then the answers you're going to get out of it are only ever going to be garbage. But how much trust and faith are you putting in that information? And kind of how do you measure that and how do you monitor that?
And I think that the danger is, and it's something I think we've touched on it in the past, is that with this shiny new toy syndrome, isn't it? It's that if a company maybe feels that they've got a lot of data, they're kind of thinking, well, if I want to make use of that, can I kind of shortcut the route to answers without having to maybe get tighter with the data quality, push it through what you would normally define as data process, data transformation, tidying it up? And is there a danger that with these new all these GPTs and models and applications being dangled in front of people, are they then going, oh, I don't even need to do that bit then, do I? But and I think that is potentially always a danger when these new it's not new, is it? But when this situation starts to arise, is there a tendency to try and, which you can understand from a business perspective? Can we shortcut the route to what we need to get? You want to go through the path of least resistance. However, if you run headlong at this because of what it needs to eat, for want of a better word, where it needs to be fed, and the reliance you put on what it gives you have to put those controls in to be able to sense check to make sure that what you are comfortable with what it's being given to give you the outcome back. As you say, it's coming, and quite rightly, and I've seen some fantastic examples of it, and a bit of upcoming applications and things that you can really add some real value. However, I would maybe say that there is a danger that if you lurch too far too fast, as with anything, then maybe there's a danger with that.
I think so. And funny, it's just reminded me of something many years ago. So, 20 odd years ago, I worked at Westminster Council, and I ran a housing benefit take-up line. And it was essentially someone phoning in and saying, this is my circumstances, am I eligible or not? So I very quickly was taught how to kind of manually assess housing benefit based on a set of numbers and a set of scribbles, basically to say yes or no.
Were you an early stage AI bot?
Very early stage AI bot. But so I'd take someone's information in on a piece of paper. I could very quickly do a calculation. There's some sums you do a calculation and say yes or no. What that meant was when you were then looking at claims and assessing claims, when someone's information came in, you could look at it and go, based on the numbers he's given me, I know in my head that the answer is going to be about 250, for example. But actually, lots and lots of people were just trained on, here's the system, you put this number in here, you put this number in here, and you put this number in here, and then whatever number at the end it produces is the right number.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, so people were putting numbers in, and instead of it being £250, it would be £2,500. But they weren't trained in how to look at the information they'd been given. They were just told almost to trust the computer and the number that it's pumping out.
Computer says no.
Yeah, so you get people trying to put claims through that were worth kind of 10 times what they were just because they put a decimal point or something in the way. And I think it's essentially to get started with some of this, you kind of have to already know what some of the answers are, so that when the AI is running and it's saying the answer is this, is that the number you're expecting, or is it 10 times bigger than the number you're expecting? And being able to measure that. And I do think there's an element of understanding your own business and your own numbers, your own figures, your own work in feeding into the AI, so that as you're looking at the results it's giving, you've got a semblance of, is that right, or is it wrong, or is it massively incorrect in doing so? So you can't really just go, we've thrown it all into AI, it's telling us this, that's brilliant, we're going to have the best year ever, sort of thing. Brilliant, yes, here we go. Whereas actually, you've doubled a number somewhere, or it's tripled a number somewhere, and you actually can't spot that because you don't know what it's doing to get to the answer. If that makes sense.
Also, things change, so information changes. So unless you're regularly updating and reviewing with information that you are comfortable that you know that it's right. So, if you look at, say, predictions for, you talk about football, if you want to do, and a supercomputer gives you a prediction for the Euros outcome or the Premier League outcome next season, they'll already be able to give you a predicted outcome. But you don't know what happened. There's things that will happen during that period that things will change, and you just do not know. That's why things quirk. So unless you are constantly updating and reviewing, and the only best way to do that is to already know, as you say, that what you're feeding it is right. You're comfortable with it, so that if it does change, suddenly you run it after 6 months, and it's now saying you're going to have an absolutely stinking year. Well, why do we not? Where you don't be caught with your pants down, so to speak.
Yeah.
With that's a wrong choice of words, but you know what I mean. It's that you have to constantly be updating it, and the only way to do that is if you've got your strong data information processes all in place, and you know what it is, so that you know it's being fed every day to give you the outcome, a decision, an information that you can make a decision on.
Yeah.
And it's the same, with going back as long as you can. I can been working in this kind of space. Is that you can build out algorithmic formulas that will give you some element of a prediction. That's not AI or machine learning, but even within elements of financial reporting, performance reporting of any kind, you can go, well, based upon this, how do we get to what the future look like? And that will constantly be reviewed. Do you need an AI bot to do that platform when you can already build that in reasonably easily? But for me, the role of AI is to make things more efficient in a way that it can give you easy heads up on things and suggestions. As you said, if you hang your hat on entirely on what an AI platform is telling you by way of an outcome, I think you are heading for a problem, because you have to quantify, qualify all of that information to make sure that it is right. It's there to support, the same as any data or information based decision. It's there to support that decision. You, as you say, as a human, you look at it and go, okay, that feels about right. It's there to support that decision, because you have to take the decision at the end of the day. Ultimately, if you're using it to support a strategy or to support an outcome. It also, with regard to processes and taking away, automating some processes and taking away some of that's going to be. I think that's a no-brainer. I've seen a lot of talk in accountancy and things about AI platforms and bots coming in to take away a lot of the manual work and paperwork. But for me, that's a no-brainer. But
well, it's interesting because first of all, you mentioned football, so I'm allowed to mention Leicester very quickly, because there wasn't a supercomputer in the world that predicted Leicester were going to win the league title.
Very true.
And we did. But also, yeah, I mean, I've had similar chats where I was talking on LinkedIn about the use of AI in tenders, and actually now what it allows me to do is almost compete in tenders that I probably wouldn't have put in for previously, because instead of looking at something going, I've got to write 30,000 words on this, I can ask AI to write it. And some of the comments underneath were quite funny, because it was like, what if your AI puts something in that you can't fulfill or you don't agree with or something like that? And you're like, well, I read it before I submit it.
But this is
like,
the danger,
I'm not
isn't
just
it? How much faith are people putting in that? And that's the scary thing. As you say, to create a framework or a structure. As you say, if you were looking at creating 30,000 words, it can give you the structure and framework to go through. And then you can adapt and update and tweak it and adjust it and take bits out of it that doesn't make sense and add your own bit in. But that's where the efficiency bit comes in, because it can take that pain out. You would look at I'd look at 30,000 and go,
not a chance.
Get probably past 30 and then get our bollocks to this. So it's like, but it's like, but then it can shortcut that process, and that's no, I said shortcut's the wrong word. It can help give you that framework and be more efficient. But yeah, if you were then just going to go create me a proposal based upon this information, great, copy paste, off you go. It's going to be ridiculous. But is that the level that people are looking for this to give them, and they're just putting blind faith in it without any real qualification? I mean, that is the scary bit, I think.
Yeah, and to me, it was just something that I personally would never do. It's his kind of a tender question. It's learning the prompts in a way. Here's what I would kind of think of the three key things. Can you make that into a substantial response that covers those 3 points, and then have AI write it, and then it comes back to you, and you go, I don't like that bit. That bit's fine. I can't do that. Change it. And it was almost like in their heads, it was a tender comes out, it gets fed into my AI tool, and the AI writes a response for me, and then auto submits it without me ever having seen it or touched it. And then you start to go, hang on a minute, I'd be writing tenders all day. I'd just literally have an AI in the background sending out tenders all day, every day for me. So there's still a human element to what the AI is doing or telling you. And interestingly, in last week's conference, one of the speakers put up a 2x2 grid, like the Forrester and the Gartner kind of grids. But his version was top to bottom was attended to autonomous, and then left to right was old process versus new process. And he was basically saying that most AI at the moment is in the bottom left, which is you're taking an old process and automating or using AI in it, but it's attended in the sense that there's a lack of trust. So you're still sense checking the work before anything happens with it. And he said there's some way you're now at the top and it's fully automated. You don't even need to sense check it. You just know it's going to be right. And although he was talking about companies in general, I've stolen his grid and I've put it into one of the places I'm working with and said even individual processes, you can use the same grid. I don't think he never stood on stage and said it was copyrighted. So I took a photo.
Again,
but we're looking at that for individual processes where we're going, okay, well, how much trust do we have in it? Is it right at the bottom, so it's 100% checked, or actually in the middle somewhere, we're checking bits of it, or at the top? And then is it an old process where we've just gone, you're still going to do that, but AI is going to help you? Or have we looked at the process and gone, your old processes were rubbish. With AI, we can now do something completely different for you. And obviously then where you are sitting on that grid. And his kind of key take was nearly every company at the moment is in the bottom left, but they all want to be in the top right. But you can't kind of start in the top right because you're not going to take anyone with you. So kind of focus on where you want to be in the top right, but anchor yourself in the bottom left.
Yeah.
And that's how you'll kind of get through to it. And it was a useful table because, as I said, he was talking about AI companies in general and where they were going. But actually, you bring that down into any kind of change or process or data project, and it's almost like the same thing. Do we trust what we're being told or not? If not, why not? Can we therefore automate it? And is it a brand new process, or are we just automating something old? And you can almost plot on the grid everything you're doing to say almost like how much time, effort, and change do you need to put around it based on where it lands on this little 2x2 grid.
I might have to steal it from you as well.
I've sent you the
because I think it's great. Yeah, please do. I mean, obviously, I'll come up with it from scratch because it sounds like a really good idea. But yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think having that, a lot of that, you can apply it to anything, as you say. It's the same concept as saying we want a dashboard. Okay, well, what do you want? I've seen this amazing tool that we're going to go and build a dashboard in that's going to give us all our answers. Okay, well, what answers are you looking for? How good's your data? Don't know. So you already, as you say, you're already aiming for that top right. That's fine, but you need to ground yourself and give yourself the framework and structure to start to know where you're going to get to that point. Because if you're trying to aim for that point, you're going to turn people off. You'll lose people along the way, and nobody wants to wait 12 months to get a dashboard or 6 months to get a dashboard. Whereas if you go, okay, you manage it down the bottom left and with the aspiration for that, but then you obviously got milestones and steps along the way that enable you to bring people through and grow around what you're trying to do. So yeah, it sounds very nickable. Doable.
It was a very sensible talk. Yeah, so I have stolen it, but I think it's key, isn't it? Is that you can't just see the shiny new toy and go, that's the answer to everything we want. I mean, I've put posts on. I talk to ChatGPT all the time. I talk to it before I go to bed. We have conversations. I tell you, the other half thinks I'm incredibly weird. But previously, what I would do is, as soon as I hit the head, my brain.
Did you say good night to it?
I have said goodnight. She knows what happens. she rolls over, puts Netflix on, and I sit and have a chat with ChatGPT. But
Good night,
it's
ChatGPT.
yeah,
Yes, love you too.
my brain doesn't switch off. So as soon as I hit the pillow, my brain goes into 1,000 thoughts on what we could do. And actually, instead of just making notes on the app and just almost like writing 2 words saying think about this tomorrow, so I remember, I actually ask ChatGPT what it thinks of it, and you can end up. Sometimes I then stay awake because I've started something and I can't get out of it.
Made it worse.
But once I've said goodnight to ChatGPT and sleep well, I know that when I come down in the morning, instead of just having a note that says think about this, I've got an entire conversation that says, I was thinking about this, what do you think? It's gone, here's some answers, here's some good points and bad points. I might have extended on it going, I like this point, what do we think of that? And even if I don't use it, it just, for me, really helps the thought process around what I was thinking. So I've taken something that was kind of one-dimensional, a couple of words on a screen that in the morning I might have looked at and gone, don't even know what I was thinking about, to now looking at something and being able to open ChatGPT and physically read the transcript of the conversation we had the night before and go, yeah, actually, that does make sense. That's something I need to think about and focus on. Or I'll read it and go, yeah, no, that was left field and completely irrelevant to what I'm doing. Excuse me. I've come down with a cough recently. It's annoying as hell. But hence why there's a cup of tea in my hand.
You got man flu as well. You got it back.
Yeah, even something as simple as that just means I don't read what ChatGPT says and then go, oh, well, that must be right. Because
that's it.
AI is cleverer than me, so that must be right.
End of.
And I know it's trained in a way that it's semi going to agree with me anyway. And start with, that's a great point, something. And you're like, actually, I'd almost like a ChatGPT that pops up and goes, no, you're talking utter garbage.
Yeah, you're an idiot.
You're an idiot. Why would you even think you could do that? But so in your mind, I can do all this stuff and I can use the AI, but I know that the next day I have to sit and look at it and decipher it myself and understand whether or not the conversation was beneficial or useful, or if it's something I therefore I'm going to take forwards. And that's really only from your own experience and your own knowledge that you're going to do that. But what it has done is it's quite good at triggering the second thought, the third thought, the fourth thought to try and work something through in its entirety. Kind of rather than me just sitting on it on my own, dwelling on these 1 or 2 words that I might have thought of to start with. So it is. This is where I think people don't probably understand the real benefits of it. It's not. We ran a survey at one customer site on how people viewed it, and pretty much every answer was about losing the human touch. And their biggest worry was that the customers would lose the human touch and the human element. And actually, when you get into it, you go, well, using the AI allows you to do more of the human touch and more human element because you're now not having to do some of the day-to-day crud that you were having to do before. And you can take all of that away. And actually, you can showcase how by using some of the basic tools, the minute-taking things, the meeting transcripts, all of that stuff, actually you can spend more time with people and more time talking to them because you haven't got this information or this other work to do, and it's really the difference between where we are at the moment with what generally is described as a co-pilot, so something sat next to you to help you, whereas in the future it will be the pilot. And that's where you get to the box on the top right where you're running pilot AI.
Yeah, and you can create workflows based off that, can't you? To say if it's that, but then you kind of and I do like the idea of a brutally honest GPT though. I think that'd be great. I think we've stumbled across something there, just an absolutely brutally, offensively honest, saying you're an absolute idiot. Well, what are you thinking? What an absolute dumbass idea. I love the idea of that. But anyway,
it's one of the reasons I ask my customers why they like me or like working with me, and most of them come back and say it's because you're quite blunt and honest about stuff.
Yeah,
So
true.
if we give
Same.
you a business case and go, "What do you think of this?" There's so many people who would go, "Oh well, yeah, it's quite nice," and you change this. I'll read it and go, "No, it's rubbish," and just literally throw it away. It's like, let's not waste our time looking at business cases that don't matter. They're not going to help you. Let's just move on. And
Mm.
yeah, I would love that chat GPT myself. It does say kind of like here's this, but here's another way of looking at it. But I almost quite like it to be rude to me.
Oh
I
yeah, I think
genuinely would
there's
like a
some
rude
I think
chat GPT.
we're getting some very dark insights into your lifestyle, Richard. I
I
must
know,
admit.
I know. The problem is that I'm alone a lot of the time. That's the problem because obviously she
I
flies
think you
through
should
it.
stop. You're
So
digging a bigger hole. But
who
no,
said
it's
data's boring, eh, Richard?
it's not. That's I know it's not. I don't agree. They're liars. Feed that into Chat GPT and see what they say.
Yeah,
But no, I think, yeah, you have to have that element on there that basically pulls you back and says no. But I think that has to be built in, and it's the same with going back to your point around streamlining decisions and processes. Without having that in the first place, how do you even know what to give ChatGPT? How would you would even know to get and to give to an AI platform? Copilot, great. Support efficiency, being able to streamline processes, 100%. But if you're uploading spreadsheets into ChatGPT and saying, "Give me a prediction on what," I think, and I think they have. To be fair, there is people that do say, "Well, you need to be completely explicit on what you're asking, otherwise you can end up with, some very rogue results." And I think, but that is, if you give it, I guess there's always this concept of giving it as much information as possible. But I think, and I saw a presentation on this, it was like, well, if you can give it kind of three levels of question. One of them is just a straightforward yes, no kind of outcome. You're asking it to define something, or then you can give it some more like another layer of context and ask a question. And the third layer is obviously a bit more intense. You're giving it more. I wouldn't necessarily. I guess the point is not giving it more and more data. You're giving it more to think about. You're giving it more. It's how you question it. That's what was put across to me, and it's like, well, how do you, postman?
I'm going to have to for 2 seconds because my dog's just gone crazy at the window. Bear with me 1 second.
To play some hold. I mean, they did some hold music. I was going to start singing or something, but I don't think that would have helped anybody.
Very quickly looking at the screen, and I realised I couldn't actually find where the mute button was for my microphone. I was
Oh yeah, it's down the
scrolling
bottom.
around very quickly. I've got the microphone button, but it doesn't say mute. You can mute while recording, but you can't switch mics. But then it doesn't say how you mute. So
Never mind.
there's something to look at.
I covered for you well just by staring at the camera.
I'm sure no one will notice. So,
I was going to start singing, like I said, but that wouldn't have been very good. That wouldn't have helped anybody.
Unfortunately, I have a cockapoo that needs to warn the entire neighbourhood whenever someone comes within 15 foot of the house.
Neighbourhood watch.
Neighbourhood watchdog, yeah. So, as much as he's been trained not to, he ignores the data we've given him and chooses to take his own route.
Yeah, I know. This is it, you see. So he's ignoring the protocols and deciding to do what he likes. But yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think the premise is that it's not a case of just uploading everything and going get on with it. You'd have to give it specific, explicit questions and definition of outcomes to be able to get. And even then, I think you need to be, as we said at the beginning, you need to really know what you're trying to do and to go, okay, that's fine. But that's the way it was explained to me in this meeting. It was a really interesting meeting, and it showed the difference between just asking it to do something, to ask it to think about something, and then you're asking it to think about something with these parameters, with this context, defining what you're looking to come out with. And then suddenly, I think that's just narrowing the bandwidth of the scope of error within there. It's the same with anything data related.
I think a lot of it, isn't it? I mean, I've always talked about kind of coming up with a hypothesis and saying, I think if we do this, this will happen. And it's almost like, this is what I think will happen. Now, almost either prove it that that's what happens, or show me that that's not what happens, and explain why. And I think if you go into it with almost like an inquisitive, more, I don't know, sciencey, researchy thought process around what you're going to get from it, you'd probably stand in better. What's the phrase I'm looking at? You stand a better chance of getting something useful out of the other end of it, as opposed to, like you said, I was watching something the other day and I saw Tableau on screen. I think Tableau's great. We should go get Tableau, thinking that's the answer to your problems. And we've talked as well about obviously the information, the data you look at, and the information I look at, and how you bring that together actually to give you that complete picture. But it's knowing what then you do with the information that picture is telling you. What changes can you make in your business? What can you do going forwards? And again, AI will give you some suggestions and give you ideas, but a bit like filling in the tenders, I still want to look at that and sense check it and make sure that what it's telling me isn't out of date or biased, or like I said, looking at almost the wrong question in a different way. And I think a lot of AI stuff, particularly at the moment, as people are getting used to things like ChatGPT and Copilot and the image generators and things like that, a lot of the learning is actually understanding how to prompt it.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. Yeah, and I think that's the lesson I took away from this. The things that I've read is it's asking it the right things will get you the better outcome, and that sounds a bit obvious, but you have that. To go back to my previous point, that you have to be incredibly accurate on what you're giving it and what you're asking it to do, to know that actually that's the right outcome and that's the right information it's being fed backwards.
And to kind of bring it back to LinkedIn as well, there's a lot of people who said, "Oh, I don't like AI generated posts on LinkedIn," but I think what they actually mean is, I don't like AI generated posts where you've given it no thought, where you've just gone, AI generate me something interesting. Whereas a lot of my LinkedIn posts are AI generated, but the prompt the prompt that it gets given is almost as long as the post itself.
Yeah.
And actually I'm using AI to put it into a sensible order sort of thing. So the prompt is, I want to talk about this particular subject. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Can you relate the two and bring it back to a call of action or something at the bottom? So what you're getting is effectively my words, my style, my thoughts, but someone else has just organized them into something that flows quite nicely as a piece of text. And I think
as opposed to saying, write me a post on this and then leaving it and then posting that out.
And that's completely different. So again, people saying, "Oh, I don't use AI." It's kind of like, well, do, because it if you can't afford a content writer or something else, it might actually just help you write better now.
Just structure, be more efficient, isn't it? And I think, I don't know if you've played around with the rewrite with AI on the platform as well. If you type in a post and it says, "Can you rewrite?" I did it on something and I'm like, what a load of garbage. It came out with something and was like, what is this?
Yeah.
It's just LinkedIn. I went, get rid of that, revert back. It was terrible.
But again, you have to be comfortable kind of saying, I'm going to put this post out in my name. Therefore, I personally think you have to believe what you've just written in the post. So even if AI has written it, you need to read it and go, is that something I would say? And is that something I agree with, before you even then put it out? I think it's the constant churn ones. And even I'm writing another book at the moment. Just, is it
in AI?
It's not AI. It's around my tool, actually, how it works and the software. But AI has given me a bit of a structure. to it. So when I said, this is what I want to write, this is what I need to explain, this is the concept behind the book, how would you do the chapters? And it kind of came back and said, right, chapter 1 is this, all the way through to chapter 9. And that's enough for me to put on a page and then go, right, I can fill in all the words I need to fill in now because someone else has said, in this bit, just write about this. And I know there's a new tool out that is a book writing AI tool, and the company who produce it are very, very clear that this tool does not write your book for you. You do not want AI writing your book, but what it will do is structure it for you and help you and prompt you where you need more case studies or more ideas or anything else, and help you to bring it all together without the need of kind of like an expensive book coach or something like that.
Or ghostwriters, yeah, they kind of it's just like an automated. I can see I get that. I don't think there's any different than doing that than giving it to a publisher or someone to edit it or ghostwrite it and stuff.
No, I don't. It's about, for me, how you use it. I think it's almost coming back to the start. If you just think, I want to write a book, and we know there's people out there saying they're putting 20 books a year on Amazon or something because they're just getting AI to write them a book. That book is going to be nonsense, isn't it, really? There might be some thought in there, but it's all just been trained on stuff that's already available for it to look at and read. So it's just bringing you a book based on the information that's out there. Whereas actually the book you're writing should be relatively new, some new ideas, some new thoughts, and everything else. So there's an
unusual take on Jack on the Beanstalk, created by AI.
By AI. So his name was Jock. And it was
Jock and the Beansprout.
Yeah, it was a much shorter climb. But it's that kind of thing. It's like, find the uses for it, where it helps you, where it supports you, and where it can give you the right information. Because even then, it says structure your chapters 1 to 9. I think it was chapter 7 or something I didn't like, so I've changed chapter 7 to something else that I think flows better than what GPT said would flow well. So yeah, you have to use it, but apply a lot of your own knowledge and your understanding to it. And I think that's true of data, of dashboards, of information, of reports. You've got this information now, and it's showing you something, but you're still the person that now has to look at it and go, what does this mean, and what are we now going to do with that information going forwards? And again, you might turn around and say, okay, I've got this information, I'll put that into AI and see what AI says, but then don't take that as gospel. Take that as, right, that's some ideas and some prompts, but I need to add my own thoughts into that, my own processes into it.
Yeah, and that's where I think it will add it adds a lot of value, as you say, because typically at the end of every particular period or reporting period, your business will review numbers and they go, great, okay, well, what do we learn? What do we do moving forward? But if it can give you some structure to that and some prompts as to what to discuss and what to consider by enriching the information that your reporting is showing you, then perfect. Because but then don't go, it's told me I need to do this, so we're going to go and do it.
Yeah. And also make sure
it's told me to sell all my stock for a penny. We're going to go and do
it. Is right in the first place as well. Otherwise, what it's telling you to do isn't going to be reflective of what you actually need to do anyway.
Like Jock and the Beansprout.
Yeah. It's a very short book. He took one step and he squashed it.
Oh dear.
So yeah, I mean, everything is data related, isn't it? In IT anyway, and information and it's kind of the step up from, you've got the data. The data is used in some way or transformed into information, and it's that information that you now need to decide what you're going to do with it. And that might be, as we said, it might be that you look at it and you make your own decisions. It might be you put that information into an AI tool and say, what do you think? But on that trust and autonomous kind of grid, where do you stand? And at the moment, most people are still in we still don't 100% trust it. We want to own what it says or what it tells us, rather than we're just going to pump this information in, and whatever comes out of it is the
And
right
there
answer.
go, and it goes back to the you're getting the foundations right, because if you don't have the trust in the data that you're on the outputs that you're already seeing, or you don't have access to the information you want already, then you're not going to get any benefit by slamming that into AI. You have to trust and see what you need now, and then that's the bolt on, and that's the bit that will then give you the extra value rather than just trying to throw everything in there and fix all the problems.
Yeah. And again, like we said, kind of start bottom left, start using it, growing it, find some a level of trust within it. Look at your older processes, look at your new processes. Aim for top right on that grid, but ultimately don't go straight there because that's not going to give you what you need. Start bottom left and then grow from there outwards.
And then
And even if you
before you know it, you'll be saying good night to it.
before you know it, you're talking to it and saying goodnight, and always say please and thank you just in case.
Always.
Because one day you never know. I'm far too polite to ChatGPT.
Shouldn't be. Should be charging. I still do like the idea of a brutal AI ChatGPT. I think that's great. I think we should talk about that. Yeah.
We'll work on that model in the background. Cool. Right. Let's call this one a day. Yep. I need to run and go do some actual work as opposed to chatting to you all morning.
Why would you want to do that for?
Which one's more fun? Who knows? So yeah,
charming.
We will chat again in a couple of weeks, Richard. Been a pleasure as always.
See you soon.
Cheers.
Later. Bye.